Welcome to Far Realms Radio. I'm Skylar.
And I'm Justin.
This is our podcast of many things,
Where we give you eldritch advice to improve your Dungeons & Dragons games.
Let's dive in. Welcome to Far Realms Radio. This week, we're talking about the Cleric.
The only class to never have its name changed in the history of the game.
From the very start of it to today. It also is historically one of the most powerful classes there ever was. Clerics can do a lot.
Powerful and versatile.
Yeah, definitely.
So what is a cleric in D&D is the question.
I mean, I think that, what is a cleric is definitely a question I asked when I was a teenager, going what is that like the sports ball team?
Yeah, I was like, is that like the white mage in Final Fantasy?
Right. When a friend of mine said, yeah, he has exactly the example he used.
With armor and melee weapons. And you're like, so better?
Right. And then I was like, but wait, there are paladins too. What?
And that distinction, I think, has always been kind of a fuzzy line. The game describes them as intermediaries between the mortal world and the distant planes of the gods.
So priests.
Yeah, well, as varied as the gods they serve, clerics strive to embody the handiwork of their deities. No ordinary priest, a cleric is imbued with divine magic.
So priests and pagan priests, question marks?
Magical priests.
You can see how this was inflammatory maybe in the 80s.
Yeah, the Satanic Panic and all that. But it was based on, Gygax based it on characters that, in history, really, the Odo of Baio and Archbishop of Turpin were kind of like base characters that evolved into like paladins and
it's a classic archetype too,
like
right?
that.
Like not every holy person is going to be a warrior necessarily. Also see the Pope or a variety of other great healers, even Gandhi, you could say, whatever it might be. Like somebody who has a lot of power, but the power comes from a different power source than other magic users. Faith in this case. What's interesting, I think, is in the earlier editions, there was this sense of tying classes to different sort of names because it's all made up, right? Like a cleric versus a priest versus a holy person or a hierophant or anything like that. So they kind of baked it in. I always read in the early ones when they're like, as you progress in levels and you change your title, so to speak, it's sort of like whatever you want. You here are some suggestions, and we kind of put it in some rules.
Well, in the original game, you had titles that you got as you leveled up.
Well, right. And it started with things like Acolyte and then ended up in like Vicar, Curate, Lama, Patriarch, which have, of course, no bearing on each other at all.
I think Village Priest is the best.
I graduate to Village Priest.
That's the third one. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of responsibility.
Also, whose village? Did you suddenly get a village?
Aren't you adventuring? Right. I don't understand.
I thought that you were like in a dungeon for the past month.
Yeah, isn't that like a step down from Cleric?
You came back from the dungeon enough times in old school D&D. They were like, oh, you survived the Tomb of Horrors. You must be our new priest.
Right, I guess that's it. But clerics first show up in 1974 in the original game. And the class is kind of like described as being this between the fighting men and the magic users. They have advantages of both classes. In that they could use a lot of the magic armor and all non-edged magic weapons, no arrows either, as well as a number of their own spells. In addition, they could use a lot more of the magical items than the fighting men could. So they kind of bridged the gap between those two other base classes.
Yeah, you could get by with a cleric and no fighter in your party. You would be harder pressed to get by with a fighter and no cleric in those days.
Clerics get invited to every party.
Right.
For a reason.
Nobody always wanted to play one too, because it was kind of the incentive they gave to still play the class, even though they knew that as the class who had healing powers, you were going to have to be spending your magic on healing all the time.
You didn't have any healing powers at level 1.
Right, in the original one you didn't.
You just had a mace.
And
you're like, well, guys, I'll be able to heal you eventually, but right now...
I have faith. I will get magic one day. Have faith.
Right now, I'm just a shitty fighting man.
I just need your faith to get me there.
Seriously, guys, I swear the gods listen to me. Yeah, at level 1, you're just like kind of the town crazy person, I guess.
That's changed, of course, over the editions, but...
they give them a big upgrade when we moved to AD&D. The Cleric, of course, was one of the 5 core classes. They got their hit die bumped up to a D8, which was pretty sweet, especially at the time, given how frail other casters were.
Right. Remember, wizards would have D4.
Yeah. And then you could heal at first level. You could do things with spells. And the wisdom score kind of gave you this spell bonus, while having a low wisdom score actually gave you a spell failure chance.
Yeah.
Which works fine. Something that I thought was really cool that I didn't know was that the specialty clerics and the cleric spell sphere concepts that showed up later actually came from Dragonlance.
That's interesting.
In the 1987 Dragonlance Adventures book.
This is one of the things where the D&D and the fiction around D&D have permutated each other back and forth, right? So Dragonlance comes up with this notion of spheres. Dragonlance was very deeply tied also with the origins of D&D. There wasn't a lot of fantasy at that time.
Dragonlance.
Right. And then the notions of spheres gave rise to a magic system around it that was tied to Kryn, but then the Forgotten Realms co-opted that
and then
later.
Spheres became domains.
Right.
And then prayers and then domains again.
Which then influenced the fiction that Ed Greenwood wrote, back into the fiction realm.
It's an interesting, circular process, And in second edition, we kind of started to see a lot of that come into play through those spheres of influence.
Yeah, they doubled down on it a lot. I vividly remember the old Deities and Demigod book, and it went into such detail. I think this was Sean K. Reynolds who wrote it, on all of the different spheres and things. I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm glad they included this for completionist's sake, but when would I ever use this in my game?
Sun.
Or even
weather.
here's the domain of mud.
Yeah, you had them all, and they'd have this big circle, and they're kind of all around that circle. And when you chose one, you could do spells from that sphere of influence as well as the ones adjacent to it.
Right. It was their reflection of that people's worship was more complicated than just monotheism or anything else like that. They kind of knew that belief structures in this imaginary game were maybe tricky in some areas. They're like, here's some historical evidence. People used to worship pantheons, and they would worship one or more parts of the pantheon. And if you worship like Thor or Zeus, he'd have thunder in Zeus's case, also lightning, which is adjacent to it.
A lot of it was analogs of real world religions.
Sometimes they actually wrote them in the books.
His religious historical figures are kind of the basis for the class.
Right.
And so you did see designers pull away from that due to the Satanic Panic. They even changed the names of devils and angels and demons to different silly things.
One of the things I liked about it, though, just coming to the game at that point, was it was interesting to see a system of thinking around belief structure, and maybe with equal weight given to each of the deities' dogmas in whatever the book was. Just being able to look at it and say, oh, they have deities of death and so on and so forth, and also life and also war and whatever, and how they interplayed with them. It felt, I don't know, easier and maybe more approachable to the imagination than a lot of the old, combing through Norse Eddas and sagas or Egyptian lore.
Exactly. They definitely game codified it a bunch because when you look at a lot of those, it's a lot more nuanced, and different writers and different texts will present very different versions of Loki, for example.
It's a daunting job.
It depends who you're reading.
Right, absolutely. So, hats off to the designers of the day, because being able to codify that in some sense, wow.
Yeah, making a pantheon there's ways to do it, but it's always kind of a challenge to get it to hit just the right notes without it feeling like you're copying something else.
Right.
The funny thing I thought, though, about Clerics in this edition was they were still limited to blunt bludgeoning weapons unless allowed other weapons by their dogma or mythos.
You choose your specialty.
But you could also use an armor or a shield.
Right.
Now, the funny thing here is I don't know. I feel like concussions you're still fucking somebody's day up. I don't understand.
Yeah, but this was back when
you can be a cleric of death, but God forbid you shed blood.
This is back when
with a bladed weapon.
I think it was more about damage, actually, how they balanced it, less than about necessarily belief structure. Because in second edition, the blunt weapons didn't have very high crits, and they weren't the most damaging, but they did the most damage to the most kinds of monsters.
Gotcha.
But scimitars, long swords, bastard swords, great swords, they all did more damage to higher numbers, which of course players wanted to roll more dice and have higher numbers. Of course that power gamer came back out and wanted to kill things better with a crit. Remember in third edition, they doubled down on it with the scythe, where it was 4x for a crit. So, what you would do...
I totally never abused that.
What you would do with this in second edition was you would pick a cleric, and you would pick a specialty class that granted you access to a badass weapon like a scimitar, and also some blast like a wizard, then you could gish your way past no matter what.
You were a crit machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was good times. The other thing in this edition, what we first saw, were some of the specialty cleric supplements and variants. The Crusader, the Monk, the Mystic, and the Shaman were all kind of under that umbrella. The Monk and the Mystic kind of became different things later on, as well as the Crusader and the Shaman kind of moved towards Paladin and Druid, even though the Paladin showed up as a subclass of the Fighter quite early on as well. So after second, you move on to third and 3.5, and that's really you start to see the cleric as we know it now with its domains and the way they prepare spells, and they have a little bit more of that spontaneous casting that we're used to now. It kind of first shows up here.
They got rethought big time coming to third edition, especially from second edition, and they tried to listen to the feedback of the community, some of the tropes of the game, and old gaming, it's like nobody wanted to be the cleric because it meant that you had to have...
You were the heal bot.
Yeah, all your spells were healing. So none of the cool other spells that clerics would get you could use because your party would just give you crap if you didn't heal them.
Yeah, if you didn't have all the healing spells prepared, people are like, what are you doing?
Right. So then you become a gate for the party. It's just, it's not, didn't leave you feeling great.
You did have power. Everyone on the party had to rest, though. It was like, guys, I'm out of healing spells. Right. I think we're going to take a break. And they're like, yep, okay.
Fair.
We're going to do it.
The thing is, in third edition, I think they succeeded at changing that pretty admirably. And what it resulted in was the cleric is the most powerful class for third edition and 3.5, and even I think in Pathfinder still. It was
definitely one of the most powerful base classes.
I mean, like you're wearing heavy armor.
You can heal yourself.
You can use simple weapons, which is not just bludgeoning. You can heal yourself, but you don't have to take healing spells. This is one of the things that made it so powerful. So like, you're a pretty decent warrior. You can wear armor and shields at least as good as fighters and paladins. Yeah, you can't fight as well as them necessarily, but, as far as survivability is concerned, you can take cleric spells now, whatever spells you want, and then, if you're worshiping a good god, or neutral and you choose it, you sacrifice any of the spells that you have for spontaneous casting to heal your allies.
Yeah, that was kind of nice. Depending on your alignment, you could, if you were good, you could heal. If you were of evil alignment, you could inflict wounds.
Right.
If you were neutral, you could do both, so you pretty much always found a way to try to choose neutral.
You had to pick. And I think it depended on the DM whether it was when you memorized it or when you picked your faith.
Gotcha. Well, usually your deity had a specific alignment they fell under.
No, I mean if you chose neutral, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it would depend. Sometimes, you'd be stuck with one or the DM would let it be flexible. It just kind of depended on context. But it did come back to those domains because that really, a lot of the time in 3.5, you chose your alignment to get the certain domain that you wanted.
Well, right. I mean, this is the spheres. It's the same kind of thing as in second edition. You pick your specialty cleric, whichever one you want, and then in third edition, instead, you get domains, and they don't call it spheres of influence. Instead, it's the domains of power, right? Whatever the domains the god has, and you get these different powerful abilities for each domain that you would get, but you're still picking your cleric, your god, based upon what power you wanted to get.
You also saw the kind of the Turn of the Dead, Channel Divinity stuff started showing up for clerics here with the terms that we use now. Channeling your divinity.
So you think about relative to other classes of the day, wizards could do arcane magic, rogues could do magic items and sneaking and a little bit of fighting. Fighters could fight and they could survive. Barbarians could fight better and survive better, and also roguey stuff. Clerics could fight, they could heal, they could harm, they could buff, they could do everything. So it was really easy to build a powerful cleric.
Oh, yeah. And they were very flexible because you had so many domains to choose from. You could take in a lot of different directions.
Does this one enhance your dexterity? Does that one give you darkness at will?
Yeah, and also in 3.5, you were no longer restricted to stupid blunt weapons.
Right.
You could use all simple weapons, and a lot of the time you had other weapon proficiencies you either got through domains or through feats, or sometimes you could just use the signature weapon of your deity. You could also use any armor or shield, except the tower shield of note, which only the fighter could use.
So in 4th edition, I think, is the first time that the cleric really got balanced with all the other classes because everything was balanced, right? That was the big shtick of 4th edition. They're
mathematically tied together.
We're going to balance it all. We're going to make it so that there's no useless class and there's no useless race. It's all going to be equal. That's that. And it did a good job at that. It's very clear roles. They had math behind how they managed all the numbers and what you could do. And it was very restrictive, but it dramatically rethought the game. And it clarified really power sources, I think, not just from talking about arcane versus divine, but for all the classes. And cleric too, it's a divine power source. So, that means you pick a god or whatever it might be, but it doesn't need to be necessarily that. It made it very easy to build a flexible cleric as more than just a heal bot, but I mean, they retermed it as a leader.
Yeah, it fell into that leader role in terms of the party roles that you had in that edition. It also kind of set you up for these two cleric builds of the battle cleric and the more healy magic-y cleric, and kind of gave you those paths to go down, kind of like a branching skill tree almost.
This is with each of the classes, right? Which of these two builds are you going to go toward? And if you do anything suboptimal, well, it's suboptimal. So, and this is where I think that 4th edition often received a lot of criticism in particular, because clerics, like wizards, one of the things you like out of it is flexibility to pick spells. Like you can, especially in 3rd edition, you could pick all kinds of weird esoteric stuff. It's magic, not just fight.
I also thought it was funny in 4th edition that all of your powers were called prayers.
Yes.
Like in Dungeons and Dragons, thoughts and prayers actually does something, I guess. I wish the real world worked that way.
Hey, escapist fantasy at its best.
Thoughts and prayers.
There you go.
And then now we are here in 5th edition. Clerics are pretty similar. They haven't changed too much. Big things that have changed are they now have one domain in 5th edition, which is kind of your subclass.
Right. I mean, it's basically back to like 5th edition's simplify.
There's kind of a change with the proficiencies. You're still proficient with light armor, medium armor, shields, and simple weapons. However, they took away the base armor proficiency in 5e. You get it back through a lot of the cleric subclasses. You can get it through feats. However, it was a very notable thing to take away from the cleric is it's had it since its very first inception in the original edition.
Yeah. So, let's just go through the class features. I think what's interesting about clerics is that they, in different editions, have been on par or not on par with wizards or sorcerers as far as spellcasters are concerned. Their spellcasting comes from their wisdom, right? It's from their faith.
Yep.
And they basically have a list of spells that they can pick from, and then they choose which ones they have prepared each day. Unlike a wizard, which picks from the spells in their spell book, or other classes, warlocks have a set number that are always available, and that's it, right? So you kind of have to know what's available to you and then pick a few favorites.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You're kind of halfway in between the fully preparing everything and the spontaneous casting, which is kind of nice. I've always kind of liked that mix of like you choose your available spells, but you can mix around those spell slots within those chosen spells however you want.
Right.
And I always kind of joke now that all the character classes in 5e, everyone's a cleric now. Because in previous editions, kind of only the clerics work that way, but you see other classes work that way as well in 5th edition.
Granting the ability to heal other people, all kinds of stuff.
Having that mix of prepared spells and spontaneous casting options.
Yes, yes.
But you actually get that at level 1, along with your domain, which is interesting because usually you don't get your subclass in 5e until levels 2 or 3. With a cleric, you give it at level 1 due to the way it interacts with proficiencies, right?
Right.
You get armor or weapon proficiencies. It's also kind of so inherent to your character to have that connection with the deity that they just throw it in there at level 1.
You're not going to be like a cleric of question marks faith for 2 levels.
I'm not sure yet, guys.
I don't know where my power comes from.
I'm really religious, but I don't know to whom. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a very front-loaded class. In fact, at level 3, you get no features whatsoever. You
just second-level spells.
You just get second-level spells, which is a big deal.
Yeah,
it's a big deal, but it's weird always seeing that empty space under your features on the chart. At level 2, though,
you get Channel Divinity, right? Channel Divinity is, I think it's the same kind of thing like Turn Undead, Channel Undead, or whatever it might be in prior editions too.
And it changes based on your domain.
Right. And 4th edition they changed it into basically a power source where you could use it for different purposes. And 5th edition maintains that too. There was some of the start of this in 3rd edition. If you were certain kinds of prestige classes or different things and had a channel Undead or Turn Undead power, you could use it as like a power source for other stuff. This is the same case here. Basically, it lets you use energy from whatever your deity is that you worship to fuel a variety of magical effects. And it depends upon which domain you picked, what you can use it for, right? Usually you have to wait until you do a short rest or a long rest before you get your uses back. But almost always these effects require saving throws of some DC, usually your spell DC, to overcome.
Yeah, and the effects are pretty varied based on what subclass you're going with. They all do have that kind of turn undead ability built into them a little bit.
They do.
And later at 5th level, you get destroy undead, which is always a nice free bit of EXP.
Right. What's interesting is that they just took it out here, the ability to control undead, which was dating back to 2nd edition where you could do either one. Right?
Yeah, it was kind of nice having that option, or maybe your cleric went one way or the other. But yeah, I believe there's a subclass now that leans into that a little bit.
There is. You have to opt into it. It's once again them sort of saying like, hey, heroes first, villains / anti-heroes maybe question marks?
Maybe.
We're just going to put it behind the curtain.
You can build for it.
You can ask and we'll show it to you.
We're going to put it in the DMG and hide it from you.
But it's not for you players.
Right? Even though it's a PC option, it makes no sense. At level 10, though, you get Divine Intervention, which I think is a cool one.
It is. I mean, it's definitely a kind of thing that lets you either really hate on your DM and grief your DM.
It is a little DM dependent.
Or other players, depending.
The coolness of this one depends on how cool your DM is.
Yeah, and I think how cool you have built your cleric to be.
Yeah, exactly. Like the more you play and lean into that deity bit, the more this probably will help you out, because when you use this ability, you implore your deity to help you. Essentially, you describe the assistance you seek and roll percentile dice.
Basically, you're literally asking for Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level on those percentile dice, which is 1 out of 100, your deity intervenes. The DM, however, chooses the nature of said intervention. The effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell is considered appropriate. So it kind of gives your DM an idea, because otherwise the DM's like, I don't fucking know.
What does that mean? I'm going to drop an Archon on him right now?
What am I supposed to do with this?
He gets a what? Did he get?
The interesting about this is you can't use it again for 7 days.
So it's basically starting at 10th level.
If you succeed, right? Here's what it says. If your deity intervenes, you can't use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. So you can just kind of constantly pester your deity until they give in. You know, like you used to do your mom. You're like, come on, mom.
10%
let's
chance.
go do this. Come on. And just wear them down.
Hey, deity. I really, but the thing is, if you think about just the math of this. So you basically, when you get this ability at 10th level, it's a 10% chance. Mm-hmm. The max it ever gets is 20%.
Yeah.
Which means,
actually, at level 20, it becomes 100%.
When you do it
straight up.
At straight up 20, right, until you use it again.
Yeah.
But let's just say for 10% when you get it.
Yeah.
10% chance every day that God or gods come down and answer your prayer in the form of a spell, whatever that might be. So you're a cleric at 10th level. You have some idea of what powerful spells there are out there. You can just pray, and if you pray for a 10-day, then it's almost a guaranteed success.
Right.
I'm just going to pray for divine intervention, guys. No, don't worry about it. We're going to summon a swarm of locusts over there. Just give me 10 days to pray. DM, we're going to wait here until I roll a 10.
I'll cover all the in prices. No big deal. We'll hang out here for a 10-day. Exactly. That's kind of the other main feature that you get as a cleric. The other ones all kind of come down to your domains.
Right. The domains really do grant the clerics a lot of power. It's just...
Yeah. But before we talk about domains, I want to mention just a couple of feats that I find are always really handy for clerics. Warcaster is a solid one for a lot of reasons. Mainly you can do somatic components without having to put down your shield. You can do it with weapons, armor in hand. You can cast spells as a opportunity attack using your reaction, which is dope. So you can just cast inflict harm if someone, you get an opportunity attack. That's super a pretty useful. Cool one. And you also get the advantage to keeping your concentration up, which is really handy if you have a buff on yourself or a teammate or an offensive spell and you're wading into melee.
Yeah.
So I think Warcaster is probably one of the strongest feats for most clerics. Though obviously Lucky is good for any character. And I think
character, Lucky is for every character.
With certain cleric builds, mobile can be very good because you may want to get into melee range to heal a ally, but you don't want to get smacked around with those opportunity attacks.
Yeah, or deliver a touch,
Yeah.
Not taking a spare shot from that beefy fighter is always a good idea.
The nice thing about mobile is you do not actually have to hit them. You just have to make an attack attempt.
Right.
So, that can be pretty handy. But what really defines a cleric is their domain. So let's get into that. We're going to start with we're going to go in alphabetical order because that's how our show notes are. We'll let you know what book they're from, though. We're going to start off with the Arcana domain from Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, hereby referred to as SCAG, just because it's really fun to say.
SCAG.
And it almost sounds like it's a bad word. I feel like it's like a type of troll.
I think that's true.
That's what it sounds like those water trolls, or maybe it's like a rock troll. It just sounds trolly. Scag. That's a role that is definitely a word in the troll language.
It is.
Scag.
So, at first level, you get as your domain spells, and every domain grants you different spells. Detect Magic, always useful, and Magic Missile. This is basically, I'm a cleric who wants to be a wizard.
Yeah, you're pretty much leaning into the arcane side here.
Right.
It can be a little weird flavor-wise, but you can make it work.
Yeah, maybe you just worship a god of magic or goddess of magic or something to that effect. At third level, you get Magic Weapon, always useful, especially for overcoming resistances, and Nistel's Magic Aura, which I always think of more for effect than
I mean, hey, half of magic is just looking flashy. And
Yes.
the wizards get most of the flashy stuff, so you got to get something here. You get Dispel Magic and Magic Circle at 5th.
2 great utility spells.
Yep, Arcane Eye and Lumin's Secret Chest at 7th. And then at 9th, you get Planar Biting and Teleportation Circle,
Hot diggity.
which are just always a good time.
But by the time you're 17th, 18th level, you better be able to teleport a bunch of people around, or else
I hope
what
so,
are you doing?
Right? So let's go through what you get from this one. Level 1, you get Arcane Initiate, which when you choose this domain at first level, you gain proficiency in the Arcana skill. You also gain 2 cantrips from the wizard spell list. For you, these cantrips count as Cleric cantrips, which is handy because I guess you can use your wisdom mod maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So at second level, you get to use your channel divinity for Arcane Abjuration. It basically lets you abjure otherworldly creatures, which is like protection magic, blasting them away. You can spend an action to present your holy symbol and one celestial, elemental, fey, or fiend of your choice that is within 30 feet of you has to make a wisdom save, provided that it can see or hear you. And if it fails its save, it's turned for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. Begone, demon!
So what does turned imply in this context?
So a turn creature has to spend its turns trying to move as far away from you as it can, and it can't willingly end its move within a space anywhere that's within 30 feet of you. It can't take reactions for its action. It can only use dash to try to escape from the effect. It's basically terrified. If it can't get away in any way, shape, or form, then it just tries to dodge you as best its ability.
Nice.
So it basically it's tied to your level, how powerful a thing that you can banish, and it goes at 5th level it's 1/2, at 8th it's 1, at 11th level it's 2 or lower, of course, for all of these. At 14th it's 3 or lower, and at 17th it's CR 4 or lower. So these just like automatically, if you are a big honkin' 17th level badass character, anything that's a CR 4 lesser demon or
Just
devil or fiend or whatever, go away.
Just go home, son.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, it's really for those outsiders and kind of sending them back to their plane. I think an important thing to note is at 5th level, if a creature fails its saving throw against this feature, it's banished for 1 minute as per the banishment spell.
Which is awesome.
Which makes it a lot better. So once you hit 5th, this kind of ticks up a bit.
Yeah, that's like you send it back to its home plane, basically.
Yeah, you're not going to get any big creatures with this, given the CR limitations, but it's still pretty cool.
So at 6th level, you get Spellbreaker, which when you restore hit points to an ally with a spell of 1st level or higher, you can also end one spell of your choice on that creature. So
hot diggity.
Somebody's charmed over there and hit, hurt a little bit. You go over and heal them, and then that charmed person is gone.
The only caveat is the level of the spell you end has to be equal to or lower than the level of the spell you use to heal.
Right.
But you can pump your heal spells up, and you're getting a twofer, so it's usually worth it.
Right.
Plus, your party member's not going to be mad about more healed.
No, or even more action or negating that awful thing that was sucking on me right now.
Right? So potent spellcasting is the next one.
Basically, starting at 8th level, you add your wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any cantrip. Normally you don't.
Which is great. But at 8th level, if you're relying on cantrips for damage as a cleric, there might be something wrong. However, playing Arcana clerics, you're probably more on the caster side than the melee side. So it might be useful to have. I just feel like at 8th level, most of the time, as a cleric, you have better options.
I've always thought that this... because
the cantrips do scale up at certain levels.
All of them get this, and they do scale up and you get this boon, but it always sort of felt kind of cheap because melee and range combatants already get their ability mods.
Yeah, right? You're like, oh, cool, finally.
Right. welcome to the party, Clerics.
It's the same with Eldritch Blast. Even the Warlocks have to take a feature to get the mod.
So then finally at 17th level, you get Arcane Mastery, which basically lets you choose 4 spells from the wizard spell list, 1 from each of the following levels, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, all the good ones. You then add them to your list of domain spells. Those are the ones that are just for you. And like your other spells, they're always prepared and they always count as cleric spells for you.
Hell yeah.
So if you're not taking Wish in that, then what is wrong with you?
This is a really cool feature. I'm just sad at 17th level because most of the time I'll never see any play.
Right.
But man, that's a good one. It really, I think, is a nice capstone for this subclass.
All right, so next we have the Death Domain. This one's in the DMG.
It's one of the hidden ones.
Right, not for players straight up. You have to have the impression first.
This is one of the bad guy clerics.
So at first level, you get False Ray and Ray of Sickness.
False Life and Ray of Sickness.
Right, False Life and Ray of Sickness, my mistake. And then at third level, you get Blindness/Deafness and Ray of Enfeeblement. At 5th level, you get Animate Dead and Vampiric Touch. And then 7th level, you get Blight and Death Ward. Finally, at 9th level, you get Anti-Life Shell and Cloud Kill.
I mean, you got to get those too if you're in the death domain.
Yeah.
I feel like the first couple domain spell levels are more like sickness and plague than death, but one leads to the other, I guess.
This is definitely your Necromancer build.
Kind of. The features don't really lean into that as much as you would think. At first level, you get a bonus proficiency in martial weapons. You also get a feature called Reaper. You learn 1 necromancy cantrip of your choice from the spell list. When you cast that cantrip normally targets only 1 creature. The spell can target 2 creatures within range of 5 feet of each other. There's like 3 necromancy cantrips to choose from, so this one's cool, but a little bit limited. Your channel divinity is Touch of Death.
At 2nd level, basically, you can use channel divinity to destroy another creature's life force just by touching them. And when you hit a creature with a melee attack, you use your channel divinity to deal extra necrotic damage to the target. And then the damage equals 5 plus twice your cleric level.
It's kind of like a little mini smite.
Anti-smite.
Yeah, it's an anti-smite. I like it.
At 4th level, you get Inescapable Destruction. It's such a cool name.
The names are good, at least.
Starting at 6th level, you get Inescapable Destruction, which is basically your ability to channel negative energy, becoming more potent. Necrotic damage dealt by your cleric spells and channel divinity options ignores any resistance to necrotic damage.
Which is pretty cool because that resistance does show up. It's one of the more common ones, I think, along with, of course, like fire resistance and non-magical bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing.
Right. So at 8th level, you get Divine Strike. And basically, it allows you to infuse your weapon with strikes of necrotic energy. And once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with a weapon that you use, you can cause it to deal an extra D8 necrotic damage to the target. And then when you get to a 14th level, that goes up to 2D8. Zot.
All right. At level 17, your final feature is Improved Reaper. When you cast a necromancy spell of 1st through 5th level that targets only 1 creature, it can now target 2 within range as long as the creatures are within 5 feet of each other. It's just an improved version of that from earlier. It's not that great.
It's not that powerful.
This subclass kind of feels like it's caught between kind of some necromancy stuff and just doing more damage.
Dark Knight.
I guess more damage leads to death, but I, flavor-wise, would have preferred a little bit more leaning into the necromancy angle since you don't get so much of that in your base cleric anymore.
Mechanically speaking, if it's going to be in the DMG, I would expect it to be a little bit OP, not just a little bit risque, because this is not really particularly risque.
And if I'm using this against my players, it's kind of boring. I want my cleric to do scary shit instead of just like, he dealt a 2 extra damage of necrotic to you. He's a reaper. Yeah, I don't know. But maybe it was in the DMG for a reason.
Yeah.
The next one, however, is one of my favorites. It's
totally
so good.
So the Forge
Maybe
domain is from Xanthar's Guide to Everything. So the domains that you get, basically the spells you get, it starts off at first level with Identify and Searing Smite. So this domain is one you take basically if you want to come out swinging.
Oh yeah, you come out swinging real hard with
but
this
also
one.
like Identify, that's always useful because you're like, I know we're going to find magic things. I need to know what they do.
Jeez, I hope so.
At 3rd level, you get one of the arguably most useful spells of early levels, which is Heat Metal.
Heat Metal's a fun time.
And Magic Weapon. Both. It's like, I automatically have a magic sword or hammer or whatever.
At
Plus,
level 3.
I'm going to just automatically disarm you or make you take damage every round and have a hard time hitting me. Heat Metal is so good.
Great. At 5th level, you get Elemental Weapon and Protection from Energy.
Doubling down on whatever you already know.
7th level, Fabricate and Wall of Fire, which makes sense.
Yep.
You're a Forge Cleric. And then 9th level, you get Animate Objects and Creation, which are just a good time. Just a good time.
It's true. I mean, it's like, I'm just going to make stuff.
Yeah,
whatever I want.
It's fun stuff.
So you get some bonus proficiencies when you choose this domain at 1st level, and it's basically heavy armor and smith's tools.
Yes.
So you're going to be fighting and crafting.
Fantastic.
Viking or dwarf style.
And then you get one of my favorite features ever, Blessing of the Forge. At first level, you gain the ability to imbue magic into a weapon or armor. At the end of the long rest, you can touch one non-magical object, that is a suit of armor, or a simple or martial weapon. Until the end of your next long rest or until you die, the object becomes a magic item, granting a +1 bonus to AC if it's armor or a +1 bonus to attack on damage rolls if it's a weapon. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again till you finish a long rest, but it lasts until a long rest, so who cares?
Basically, pick your magic.
You can get such a high AC as a Forge Cleric at such a low level, even with the way they've changed the Warforge. you can get right up into the 20s at level
1.
Level 1. Now, assuming you have full plate at level 1, but I think the Warforge is one of the times where you can kind of get away with that at character creation because you're DM, you're like, but I'm a mech. And
I'm
they're like,
made of metal, DM.
like, okay, fine, I'll let you have this.
Technically wood and other materials. Yeah, but metal.
But armor.
Can I just put plate armor on?
That's just an insanely good feature.
It is. It's super useful.
At level 1, no less. And the best part is it doesn't have to be your weapon or armor.
I know.
It can be one of your party members.
Which means you can trade it around situationally. That flexibility,
fantastic.
like if you, it seems like it makes sense if it was just like pick your thing at start, and that's magic. You can make it whatever. It's that thing.
Yeah, I really like the flexibility of this feature.
Pick what it's going to be. That's super useful.
It's pretty cool.
So your channel divinity is at second level, of course, and it's Artisan's Blessing. And basically you use it to create simple items. You can do an hour-long ritual that crafts a non-magical item that must include some metal, like a simple or a martial weapon, a suit of armor, 10 pieces of ammo, some tools, some other metal thing. The creation is completed at the end of the hour, and it coalesces in an unoccupied space that you pick anywhere on a surface within 5 feet of you. So your ritual happens, and there it is.
It's pretty handy.
The thing you can create can be something that is worth no more than 100 gold. And as part of the ritual, you have to lay out the metal, which can include coins, basically with a value equal to the creation. The metal irretrievably coalesces and transforms into the creation at the end of the ritual, magically forming even non-metal parts of the creation. So if you know what it is, and you have the material cost, then
yeah, it's a great way to turn that gold and just essentially into an item. You have that 100 gold limitation, but the cool thing is you can create a duplicate of any non-magical item that contains metal. When they mention in the book is a key. That's a really handy thing to be able to do.
Useful note. This is the designers being like...
The designers are like, use this for keys, you idiots.
This is a way to get really creative.
Yeah, I think that is also just a fun one that fits with the flavor.
Totally.
Nice choice, second level. Totally dig it. This one's very front-loaded, so you don't see Soul of the Forge, the next ability, until 6th level.
Basically, when you hit 6th level, your Mastery of the Forge grants you special abilities, and it gets you resistance to fire damage, and while you're wearing heavy armor, you get another bonus to your AC.
Yes, please.
So at this point, you're 6th level, and you probably have full plate at this point.
And your AC is probably over 20.
Plus a shield.
Which is a big, big deal in 5e.
You're talking 22 AC,
right?
Maybe you can work up 23 if you have some
magic items or something.
Magic items or like a stance or some other kind of feat.
It is tough to get AC in 5e, and it's very powerful. So it's something that I'm always happy to see.
Right, me too.
The only one that kind of disappoints me in this, but makes sense feature-wise, is Divine Strike. You see this in a lot of different cleric subclasses. At 8th level, you can infuse your weapon with the fiery power of the Forge. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it can do an extra 1d8 fire damage to the target. When you hit level 14, that increases to 2d8. Nothing to write home about, but it definitely fits the character.
Definitely. And then finally, at 17th level, you get Saint of Forge and Fire, which means your blessed affinity with fire and metal becomes more powerful. You gain immunity to fire damage, and while you're wearing heavy armor, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks.
Sweet. Right. Yes, just leaning into it.
Yeah.
I really love this subclass. It's a little bit on the powerful side, but man, the flavor and the mechanics just are so cohesive that how could you not have fun playing it?
I mean, if ever I'm like, if I have to play a cleric, I'm in some group and they're like, oh man, we really need a cleric. I'm like, fine. I'm playing a Cleric of the Forge.
With a giant-ass hammer.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
great time.
Next up is the Grave Domain. And
also a Xanthar's.
That's right. XGE. So, this one starts out with, it's got another, basically, necromancy, evil undead
it's kind of like
kind
the
of touch.
cycle of life or death kind of thing.
Yeah. It starts out at first level, you get Bane and False Life as your first level 2. And then at third level, you get Gentle Repose and Rave Enfeeblement. And then at 5th level, you get Revivify and Vampiric Touch. And then Blight and Death Ward at 7th. And finally, Anti-Life Shell and Raise Dead at 9th.
Yeah, have a little bit of that necromancy feel in there and kind of that ebb and flow of giving and taking life. At first level, you get Circle of Mortality. When you would normally roll one or more dice to restore hit points to a creature, at 0 hit points, you instead use the highest number possible for each dice. In addition, you learn the Spare the Dying cantrip, which doesn't count against your cleric cantrips, and now has a range of 30 feet, and you can cast it as a bonus action. So with this kind of feature, you're often better off letting your party members drop to 0
and then healing them.
To raise them, because you're getting just more health points there.
Right. If he has, like, let's say your fighter buddy is over there and he has 3 hit points and you heal with Cure Wounds, that'll do D8 plus your Wisdom mod. So, we're talking, optimistically speaking here, 4 to 12 points of damage.
Yeah, and if you can't heal or you're out of heals, you have Spare the Dying to make sure that you can stabilize.
But if he's at 0, if he's already down and then you cast it, it's automatically at 8 plus 4, so it's a guaranteed 12.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. 5e, like going down is not as big of a deal as it used to be, because you can roll the death saves and we're not getting into that negative HP as much, though there is some instant death rules for large amounts of damage in 5e. So in 5e, you go down, but you get up more, I find, a lot of the time.
I agree.
Which is fine. It creates good tension, and it's pretty cool to just be like, boom, pop them right back up. And you can flavor that a lot of different ways.
It definitely also fits a nice beat for changing a tide in a battle or the tone
exactly.
of it.
It gives you some nice narrative levers to pull. Like, is it an inspirational speech or a plea to your god or just some badass moment you pull off?
You also at first level get Eyes of the Grave, which is the ability to occasionally sense the presence of undead whose existence is an insult to the natural life cycle.
This one kind of kills me, though, because it's any undead within 60 feet of you that isn't behind total cover. Zombies always come out from behind total cover.
The ground.
The vampire comes out from a coffin. Like, so does the mummy. Like, undead usually pop out of somewhere.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, watch a zombie movie, man.
And it takes an action to do it, It doesn't tell you anything about its creatures or identity, and you can only use it a number of times equal to your wisdom mod. You have to do a long rest when you get it back. This is like
when you see those bones scattered over the dungeon.
Is there any undead?
Yeah, you want to make sure they're not going to turn into skeletons all of a sudden.
Basically, this is every time you walk into a room where there are bodies, and the DM says there are a bunch of bodies that you see all over the place. You can automatically go, are any of them undead? And the DM will have to tell you yes or no.
Right.
But so that's like a very kind of niche.
Yeah. More useful in some campaigns than in others.
Yes, absolutely true.
The channel divinity for this subclass is Path to the Grave. Starting at 2nd level, you can mark another creature's life force for termination. It has to be a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. You essentially curse it until the end of your next turn. The next time you or an ally of yours hits that cursed creature, the creature then has vulnerability to all of that attack's damage, and then the curse ends. So this is a sweet way to just get some double damage in there.
It's like a hunter's mark for a ranger.
Yeah, it's like a quick little hunter's mark with a little like spiky damage. Yeah. Who doesn't love that? Your party members will enjoy it. You can really boost your barbarian there or any of your damaged DPS characters.
I wish it didn't take an action to do it.
I agree. It does take it, it would be nice as a bonus action, but...
So at 6th level, you gain Sentinel at Death's Door, which is the ability to impede Death's progress. As a reaction, when you or an ally you can see within 30 feet suffer a critical hit, you turn that attack into a normal hit. Any other effects triggered by the critical hit are canceled. It's basically nope.
Yeah, and you can use it a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, which is, I hope, at least a 3 if you're playing a cleric.
Yeah.
So mathematically, you're going to shut down a lot of the crits that against your party members in a given session by using this.
Right, because crits are fairly uncommon anyway, right? So it's a 5% chance you're going to roll a crit, maybe 10 in some scenarios % chance. If it happens, you have like 3 of these or more, you're going to do just nope.
You're shutting down 3 crits a game. That's great.
Yeah, totally.
Can't argue with that mathematically.
At 8th level, you get Potent Spellcasting, which is, again, just adding your Wisdom mod to the damage you deal with any Cleric cantrip. Whoop-de-doo.
Whoop-de-doo.
And then finally, at 17th level, Keeper of Souls lets you seize a trace of vitality from a parting soul and use it to heal the living. When an enemy you can see dies within 30 feet of you, you or one of your allies within your choice that's within 30 feet of you regains hit points equal to the enemy's number of hit dice. So if it had 8 hit dice, that person gets 8 hit points.
You're not getting a ton, but it's something. For a 17th level ability, I'm not super stoked on it. But
you can use it only if you aren't incapacitated, and once you use it, you can't do so again until the start of your next turn. But here's the thing. It doesn't cost an action.
That's the nice thing. It's a freebie.
Right.
It's one of those freebies, so it's hard to argue with that. It doesn't eat into your action economy. It's just free health.
Yep. Hey, so, once a turn, if you're taking something out, somebody's going to get something back.
Yep.
So you could build a cleric in this way to be the one who helps you wade through hordes of
It just has to be an enemy you can see die. You don't even have to kill it yourself.
That's true.
So that's a nice bonus.
Right. So the next domain is the knowledge domain. This one's from the PHB. Good old-fashioned PHB.
Knowledge domain's a classic. So cleric level first level domain spells, you get Command and Identify, followed by Augury and Suggestion. After that, you get Non-Detection and Speak with Dead.
Always a weird one.
Always a weird one, but kind of fun in the right setting.
Yeah.
Arcane Eye and Confusion come next at 7th level, and 9th level you get Legend Lore and Scrying. They all make pretty decent sense given what
this is your lore cleric, right? This is your priest that stays bundled up ostensibly and collects knowledge about stuff, or is traveling around the world to learn more about it, these kind of things.
Exactly.
At first level, you get Blessings of Knowledge, which is basically 2 languages of your choice and proficiency in 2 of the following skills, be they Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion, any with the knowledge skills classically. And then your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses either of those skills.
Which is great. I will take that.
Super powerful.
Super handy. I'm always on the fence with knowledge skills in 5e, but hey, if you're going to double them, I'm cool with that.
I mean, I think that's because skills in 5e are barely a thing.
Barely a thing. This is true. But it's nice to have doubled numbers.
Yeah,
I'll
totally.
take that.
So, at 2nd level, you get Channel Divinity for Knowledge of the Ages, and it lets you use your Channel Divinity to tap into a divine well of knowledge. As an action, you can use one skill or tool that you pick it, and then for 10 minutes, you have proficiency with the chosen skill or tool.
I kind of really like this one. It's very simple, but so versatile. And it's so nice to be able to just kind of be like, I need to be proficient in this skill. Now I am.
Right.
Because every time you play a character, there's usually 1 or 2 skills where you're like, man, I really wish I was proficient in that. But there's no way in hell I'm spending a feat on it.
If only we had somebody who is proficient in how carts work.
It's just not worth it sometimes, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, imagine now, it would have been more useful in 3.5. Does anyone have use rope?
Totally.
You also get a different channel divinity, though, which is kind of interesting. You get a twofer with this class. You get another one at level 6 called Read Thoughts.
Yeah.
And at 6th level, you can read a creature's thoughts. You can then use your access to the creature's mind to command it, which is a step further away from knowledge. But hey, okay.
Yeah, I mean...
knowledge is power, right?
I guess so, in this case.
As an action, you can choose one creature within 60 feet. They have to make a wisdom saving throw. If they succeed on the saving throw, you can't use this feature again until a long rest. Otherwise, you can keep trying until it works. If the creature fails its save, then you can read its surface thoughts. And as long as it's within 60 feet. This effect lasts for 1 minute. During that time, you can use an action to end the effect and cast the suggestion spell on the creature without expending a spell slot. The target automatically fails its saving throw against that suggestion spell. So that's kind of where the meat and potatoes of this one comes in is, yeah, you get to read its thoughts, but you also get a free suggestion spell in there.
Mind control.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, a little creepy.
It's a little creepy for the knowledge domain. It would make sense for other domains, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe it would make more sense if you just got deeper amounts of knowledge or you could learn more things from them rather than commanding them to take action, but whatever.
At 8th level, you get Potent Spellcasting. This is, again, your wisdom mod to the damage you deal with any cleric cantrip. Whoop-de-doo.
Woo!
And then finally, at 17th level, you get Visions of the Past, where you can call up visions of the past that relate to an object you hold in your immediate surroundings. You can spend at least 1 minute in meditation and prayer, and then receive dreamlike, shadowy glimpses of recent events. You can meditate in this way for a number of minutes equal to your wisdom score, and then you have to maintain concentration during that time as if you were casting a spell. Once you use it, you can't use it again until you finish a short or a long rest. But it gives you 2 cool abilities.
This one is super flavorful and really fun. I just wish you could get it a little earlier because it's not so powerful. It needs to be a 17th level kind of thing. So object reading, you hold an object as you meditate. You can see visions of the object's previous owner. You learn how the owner acquired and lost the object, the most recent significant events involving the object. If the object was owned by another creature within a number of days equal to your wisdom score, you can figure out some information about said creature. The other one you get is area reading, where you kind of do the same thing for a room or an area. You see visions of recent events in a 50-foot cube. It could be a room, a street, a tunnel, whatever. And it goes back a number of days equal to your wisdom score. So for each minute you meditate, you learn about one significant event, beginning with the most recent. Significant events, it says, typically involve powerful emotions such as battles, betrayals, marriages, murders, births, and funerals. However, they might include more mundane events that are nevertheless important in your current situation.
That's not vague McVigor pants. I don't know what is.
But just from that, as a DM, if you use this, I would make it the most mundane thing ever. And then it would be so important. And you would be like, I hate you so much. But that's a good reveal.
Yeah.
You know, it's classic anime move. You're like, why was he putting that thing in a box? It's not important. Actually, the whole series is about that box.
What does that have to do with the socks in the box? Why do we even care about his socks? Oh.
Right.
Oh.
Socks are actually pretty important.
So next we have another PHP classic, and it's the life domain. And this one is basically your classic healer cleric.
This is your white mage.
Yeah, total white mage. You start off with Bless and Cure Wounds at first level, and then you get Lesser Restoration and Spiritual Weapon at third level, followed by Beacon of Hope and Revivify. And then at 7th level, you get Death Ward and Guardian of Faith. And finally, at 9th level, you get Mass Cure Wounds and Raise Dead.
No one will be mad if you pick this one.
No, definitely not.
They will be very happy you're in their party.
You will keep them alive, and they will be grateful.
At first level, you get proficiency with heavy armor because now you're a tanky heal bot. Because a lot of these are touch spells. It's pretty handy to have.
You're going to need to be up there.
And you can heal yourself too, so you can actually make a good off tank if you need to.
Then you also get Disciple of Life, which basically means your healing spells are more effective. When you use a spell of first level or higher to restore hit points, it gains an additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level.
Hell yeah, so you're getting at least a 3 bonus hit points on every healing spell you cast.
Absolutely useful.
And you can pump that up too. So yes, I will take that. That's great.
At 2nd level, your channel divinity is Preserve Life, and you basically use it to heal the badly injured. As an action, you present your holy symbol and evoke healing energy that can restore a number of hit points equal to 5 times your cleric level. You can choose any creatures within 30 feet of you. You divide those hit points amongst them. This feature can restore a creature to no more than half its hit point max.
That's an important caveat.
You can't use this feature on an undead or a construct. So this is going to keep them alive, but it's not going to keep them at top shape.
This is great for turning the tide of a battle. It's a little bit more limited in lay on hands from the paladin, but similar. The nice thing is it's a range, and you can kind of divide your hit points among your allies however you want.
Right.
So great for turning the tide of the battle. Very in theme with the class. I like it.
At 6th level, you get Blessed Healer, where the healing spells you cast on others heal you as well. So when you cast a spell of first level or higher that restores hit points to another creature, you regain hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level.
This really just feels like an MMO healer class, and I love it.
It does totally feel like that.
It also lets you be a pretty decent off-tank, too, with this ability. 5th level, though, you just get Divine Strike again.
8th level.
Oh, 8th level, excuse me, you're right. But it's Divine Strike again.
Yep.
But this time, it's Radiant damage, which is a pretty good damage source, so...
Not a lot of things have resistance to Radiant damage.
It's better than the Fire one.
Yeah. Finally, at 17th level, you get Supreme Healing, which is when you would normally roll 1 or more dice to restore hit points with a spell. You instead roll the highest number possible for each die. So, for example, instead of restoring 2d6 hit points to a creature, you just restore 12.
You just get it all.
Here's your max.
Boom. And for 17th level, yeah, I'm okay with that one. You know, hit points are very powerful in 5e, and you've cast these spells so many fucking times by this point. How would you not be good at it?
Man, all these different cleric domains have gotten me feeling parched. It's a lot to get through.
Thankfully, I believe there's a tavern domain.
We should stop
there's
inside.
There's the temple of it right here.
We should have a drink and talk.
We should do that. Let's do it.
Welcome to Tavern Talk, where we review a brew and toast to you,
our valued listeners.
So this week, we were going to do one particular brew. It was going to be a beer called Brother Thelonious. But we had a little bit of a delay in our recording because last time we went to record this, we didn't press the record button.
Yeah, we kind of forget to hit the record button last time. The beer was delicious, but we couldn't find it today, so we got something fitting instead.
This one's called Heretic Evil Twin, a bold West Coast red ale India Pale Ale. So I don't know what that makes sense. That sounds like 60% of the time.
Yeah.
It's 100% of the time, all of the time, right?
We got the evil twin of Brother Thelonious because we, for some reason, couldn't find him at Bevmo.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
He's slacking off, that brother.
It says here in the bottle, looking for something other than your typical IPA, this blood red ale has a rich malt character without being overly sweet. It has a huge hop character without being overly bitter. It is a bold, rich, balanced craft beer full of caramel notes from the malt and citrus and tropical fruit notes from massive dry hopping.
I would say it is very balanced.
Our evil twin is only bad because it is too good to resist.
It is not, it's right in the middle. It's not too bitter. It's not too sweet. It's not one of those red ales that's super duper refreshing because it has that little bit of that IPA character to it.
But it's not a kick in the face like hoppy like a lot of IPAs are, and it's not malty. As coppery as a lot of red ales. It is very malty.
Right down the middle as they describe it.
Yeah. It's from Fairfield, California. It's got 6.8 ABV. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a solid brew. Evil Twin is the beer, I believe, and Heretic is the brewing company. Mm-hmm. But every cleric's a heretic to someone else, so I think it's fitting.
And also people who don't worship clerics are heretics to the clerics.
Don't you want heels?
Of course.
Of course. So
let's talk about our contest.
We do have a contest going on, and because of our production delay and Skylar's tropical forays, we've had to extend it. So our New Year, New Dice contest is going to go to the end of February because it's a short month, so whatever. We're going to be posting a little bit more on the Twitter to advertise that because I have been a total ghost there, and we're just not huge social media guys. So that's how it goes.
New Year, New Dice, basically, we want you to share the show, and we're willing to reward you to do it with some pretty swanky dice. We have 2 dice for 2 winners in this contest. First place winner, the first person who shares our show, is going to get the best set, which is the Sinister Emerald Far Realms Radio Complete Die Hard Dice set. And second place, whoever does it next, is going to get a particularly beautiful, and you can see both of these on Twitter, large, I think it's like a space moon rock.
Yeah, the Dire D20.
Dire D20.
It's pretty cool. It really does change color depending on how the light hits it.
Yeah.
That one's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty wicked.
It's got that space theme going on.
It reminds me of Mind Flayers.
It does. Yeah, I agree. It's a scary dice to roll as a DM.
Yeah.
But they're all both made by Die Hard Dice. They make great stuff. We have a lot of their dice and really enjoy it. Our next contest will probably be a book of some kind, as that's the other thing people have requested. That way we can push knowledge on you.
Ha 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 ha.
Just like the Knowledge Cleric, It's good stuff, kid. First one's free. Actually, they're all free because they're giveaways. Just share the show, man. You can share the show on Twitter. That's what you got to do to enter the contest. It has hashtag FarRumsRadio needs to be in that post to enter. Otherwise, you can enter the contest by sharing the show in any way and just selling us proof to farrealmsradio@gmail.com. You could just take a screenshot of a text you sent your friend that's like, check out this dope podcast. Email that to us, and hey, we'll put you right in the contest.
You'll be in the contest. Good luck.
Good luck. Have fun out there.
All right.
Entering contests.
Let's get back to the show.
Let's do it. And we're back.
All right, so let's talk about the light domain. This is also a PHB one.
I like this one because it just is easy to go with the theme.
Yeah, and this is like your classic Cleric of the Light, right? Hard to go wrong here. You get a lot of utility, you get a lot of good, useful stuff, and also some power.
You also get Fireball.
You do, yeah.
Always makes the whole thing worth it.
So take us through the list.
So at first level, you get Burning Hands and Fairy Fire, both great spells. Mm-hmm. Fairy Fire is an underrated spell, I think, and it's perfect for a cleric. At third level, you get Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray.
So by light, we mean fire.
Yeah, by light, they mean fire. Things that make light, I guess. There's other spells that would make more sense, but I'm not going to argue with those. They're both pretty solid. At fifth level, you get Daylight and Fireball.
Bada bing.
Of course.
Fireball is a useful, very useful spell.
And Daylight, I hope so. It kind of makes
sense.
For
a light domain, of course.
Right. At 7th level, you get Guardian of Faith and Wall of Fire. Followed up at 9th level with Flame Strike and Scrying.
Hey-o.
I am personally always partial to Flame Strike due to playing a lot of Ultima Online back in the day. I can see that Pillar of Fire in my head,
Flame Strike has always been a great spell.
So it's just nice to have Flame Strike there. Scrying is a little strange. It doesn't have anything to do with light, but hey.
I don't know.
Whatever. That works, I guess. Bonus cantrip at first level. You gain the light cantrip. Surprise!
Shock.
If you don't already know it.
So basically pick something else and then also take light.
Do not pick the light cantrip anywhere else if you're going with the subclass.
Right.
You also get Warding Flare. This one's kind of cool, actually.
Warding Flare. Also, at first level, you can interpose Divine Light between yourself and an attacking enemy. When you are attacked by a creature within 30 feet of you you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack. I guess, causing light to flash before the attacker's eyes, before it hits or misses. And then if an attacker can't be blinded, it's immune to this creature. So it's basically, you're like shining a light in your enemy's eyes by divine power. It could also just be holding a mirror in the sun.
Yeah.
Tilting your watch so it blinds them,
Moving your sword just so.
Right.
You can use the feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. You gain all expended uses on a long rest. This is great. Being able to impose disadvantage with a reaction is huge.
Super powerful.
It disadvantages a lot. That's a -4 to 5 depending on the math. That's great.
At second level, your channel divinity is Radiance of the Dawn. It lets you use it basically to harness sunlight, banishing darkness, and dealing radiant damage to your foes. As an action, you can present your holy symbol, and any magical darkness within 30 feet of you is dispelled. Additionally, each hostile creature within 30 feet of you has to make a Constitution save, and a creature that takes radiant damage equal to 2d10 plus your cleric level on a failed saving throw, and half as much on a successful one. A creature that has total cover is not affected. So it's basically like, if you're hostile, and that's a very loose definition by which to pick, and or darkness, take damage from me.
I love that they use the term hostile a lot in D&D, and I'm like, that's a very loose term in this game.
Yeah.
This is a game with a lot of murder. It could flip that way real quick.
Really quickly.
And different players are like, well, he wouldn't give me the item I wanted, so therefore hostile. But when I imagine a cleric channeling divinity, I kind of picture this in my head, honestly. They hold out that holy symbol, and it's just like, ah! Yeah, flavor-wise, I love it.
6th level gets you improved flare, where you can also use your warding flare feature when a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you attacks a creature other than you.
Which is also great. You're imposing disadvantage on an attack roll as a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So at 8th level, you get potent spellcasting. You add your wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with cleric cantrips. We know this one by now. But at 17th level, you get Corona of Light. You can use your action to activate an aura of sunlight that lasts for 1 minute or until you dismiss it using an action.
Here's your halo.
Yeah, this is your halo. You emit bright light in a 60-foot radius and dim light 30 feet beyond that. Your enemies in the bright light just straight up have disadvantage on any saving throw against any spell that deals fire or radiant damage. So you can essentially use this to cast Fireball, and they're going to take full damage no matter how well they roll.
Right.
It's okay, I guess.
I mean,
I don't know.
This is a pretty powerful one. I don't know if it's as powerful as Cleric at the Forge, but still,
For a 17th level feature, it does feel a little eh.
So next up, we have the Nature Domain, also in the Player's Handbook. And this is, sort of crossover with Druid a little bit. At first level, it gets you Animal Friendship and Speak with Animals. 3rd level gets you Bark Skin and Spike Growth. 5th level is Plant Growth and Wind Wall. 7th level is Dominate Beast, Grasping Vine. And then 9th level gets you Insect Plague and Tree Stride.
They all make good sense. It's kind of nice to see one leaned into the Druid side a little bit more.
Nature-y.
Yeah.
At first level, Acolyte of the Nature lets you learn one cantrip of your choice from the Druid spell list. Shock. You also gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: Animal Handling, Nature, or Survival. You also gain proficiency with Heavy Armor.
That one's a little strange considering Druids don't really use heavy armor, especially metal armor.
I think it's just Cleric.
But hey, Cleric, I'll take it.
Right.
2nd level, your channel divinity is Charm Animals and Plants. You can essentially charm animals and plants.
As an action, you basically present your holy symbol and invoke the name of your deity. And each beast or plant creature that you can see within 30 feet of you has to make a wisdom save. If it fails, then it's charmed by you for 1 minute or until it takes damage. And while it's charmed by you, it's friendly and the other creatures that you designate to you.
So you can make animal friends. Hooray!
So this is how you trap your poke creatures.
Yeah, this one works. It makes sense.
Pokeball is just,
at least for a minute.
Charm for 1 minute. At 6th level, you get Dampen Elements, which means when you or a creature within 30 feet of you takes acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, you can use your reaction to grant resistance to the creature against that instance of the damage. So you're going to get Zotted for something? I can protect you. It's okay.
Yeah, you're going to get half the damage, which is always nice.
At 8th level, Divine Strike, you gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with Divine Energy. This is the one where basically on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can cause it to deal an extra D8 of your pick now. Cold, fire, lightning, to the target, which is pretty useful.
So this one's a little bit better than the other ones because you get to choose between a couple different damage types.
And at 14th level, it goes up to 2d8.
So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
The choice, I like having the choice there. It makes it mean a little bit more, and they're all nature-y. That's kind of what they're getting at. It's kind of weird that it's just cold, fire, and lightning, though.
Where's your thunder?
Yeah, like the other ones are not nature, I guess.
I don't know.
But you do become a master of nature at 17th level. You gain the ability to command animals and plants. While creatures are charmed by your charm animals and plants feature, you can take a bonus action on your turn to verbally command what each of those creatures will do on its next turn. At 17th level, commanding squirrels is not very powerful.
No.
But, you can do it. I honestly look at this subclass and I'm like, just play a druid.
I agree.
Just play a druid, man.
I mean, I agree. There's no reason, maybe except for the heavy armor. I don't know.
If you want to be a druid with heavy armor, maybe, or if you want to do a druid cleric multi-class, this is fantastic because they're both wisdom casters, and this gets you some heavy armor.
Sure.
So you could definitely go that route as well.
Still seems a little bit niche, anyway.
I agree.
Next up is from Ravnica, an oft-overlooked book.
I like this domain, though.
Yeah, it's the Order domain.
The Order domain is interesting. So at first level, you get Command and Heroism. At third level, you get Hold Person and Zone of Truth.
This sort of replaces the Law domain from third edition.
Yeah, it's very similar. At fifth level, you get Mass Healing Word and Slow.
Whoa!
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Then you get Compulsion and Locate Creature. At ninth level, you get Commune and Dominate Person. It's a kind of a strange mix of domination and little bits of everything else.
You will obey.
So, bonus proficiencies at first level, you get proficiency with heavy armor, as well as, this kind of shows you where this subclass works, proficiency in the intimidation or persuasion skill. Essentially, you tell people what to do, and you're either persuasive or you're really intimidating about it. This is like the boss domain.
Yeah, basically. Do what I say. You also get Voice of Authority at first level, where you can invoke the power of law to drive an ally to attack. If you cast a spell with a spell slot of first level or higher and target an ally with the spell, that ally can use their reaction immediately after the spell to make one weapon attack against a creature of your choice that you can see. If the spell targets more than one ally, you choose the ally who can make the attack.
This is great. This is free action economy. I will take it.
I'm going to heal you. Also, you're going to attack now.
Yeah, right? That's as a receiver of that's fantastic.
Super useful. So at second level, your channel divinity's orders demand, and you can use it to exert an intimidating presence over others. As an action, you present your holy symbol, and each creature of your choice that can see or hear you within 30 feet of you must succeed in a wisdom saving throw or be charmed by you until the end of your next turn or until the charmed creature takes any damage. You can also cause any of the charmed creatures to drop what they are holding when they fail to save.
You compel them.
So this is really useful also for DMs, by the way, to be able to say, I'm going to make your PCs drop their weapons. It's infuriating to players if you do this. But as the player, if you're facing a horde of bad guys, this is definitely useful. Against a big bad, maybe not so much.
But yeah, that's a fun one. Power of Christ compels you.
Right.
At 6th level, you get Embodiment of Law. You become adept at channeling magical energy to compel others. So you cast a spell out of the enchantment school. When you do so, using a spell slot of the first level or higher, you can change the casting time to a bonus action, provided the spell's casting time is already normally in one action. So you can use this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. You regain that on a long rest. This is cool because you're just getting more free action economy, which is insanely powerful in 5th edition.
Basically, for the enchantment school, it lets you turn an enchantment spell into a bonus action, which means you can either then also attack or do something else or cast a cantrip.
Which is great.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more desirable to use those enchantment spells because then you still get to do something.
Right.
It's always kind of disappointing when you enchant something and you're like, and that's my turn. I hope you use that well, person I cast that on.
Especially if the enchantment is against the enemy and it fails.
Right, and then you're like, oh, cool. That's it. You get Divine Strike Surprise. This time it's psychic damage, which is very rarely resisted.
It's true.
You get that at 8th level. We're not going to describe it again. You know it.
At 17th level, you get Order's Wrath, which is enemies you designate for destruction wilt under the combined efforts of you and your allies. If you deal your divine strike damage to a creature on your turn, you can curse that creature until the start of your next turn. The next time one of your allies hits the cursed creature with an attack, the target also takes 2d8 psychic damage and the curse ends. You can curse a creature in this way only once per turn. So it's basically you hit a thing and mark it, and the next time you or anybody else on your side hits it, ouch, extra damage.
Yeah, I almost would want to see this earlier or maybe a slightly different flavor. It's a little strange. Even the name Order's Wrath is kind of weird. Wrath tends to be a chaotic thing. But hey, you know. Speaking of wrath, our next one is Tempest from the Player's Handbook.
Yeah.
This is where you become Thor, I believe.
Yeah, very, very close to it. At first level, you get Fog Cloud and Thunder Wave. And then at third level, you get Gust of Wind and Shatter. And at fifth level, you get Call Lightning and Sleet Storm. At seventh level, you get Control Water and Ice Storm. And then at ninth level, you get Destructive Wave and Insect Plague.
Insect Plague is a little out of left field there, but...
I mean, Tempest, I guess, is, they're just including...
Storm of insects.
Sure. Yeah, biblical stuff.
Yeah, right? Maybe that's what they're leaning into, though.
At first level, you gain proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. So, this is the cleric to pick if you intend to fight a lot. Because martial weapons and heavy armor is like what fighters get.
That's how you build Thor.
And then you also get Wrath of the Storm, which is you can thunderously rebuke attackers. When a creature within 5 feet of you that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to cause the creature to make a dex save. The creature takes 2d8 lightning or thunder damage, your choice, on a failed save and half as much damage on success. You can use a number of times equal to your wisdom mod, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest.
It's Hellish Rebuke for clerics.
Yeah, basically.
Which is great. Who doesn't like when someone hits you, you're like, no, fuck you.
Bam!
And then they take damage.
Right.
I personally love Hellish Rebuke for that because you just you can angrily point at someone when they hit you and then all of a sudden they probably take damage.
Right.
It's a very satisfying way to use your reaction. At second level, your Channel Divinity feature is Destructive Wrath. You can use your Channel Divinity to wield the power of the storm. When you roll lightning or thunder damage, you can just deal max damage instead of rolling.
Hey-o.
This actually stacks quite well with the other features in this class.
Mm-hmm.
So that 2d8 lightning or thunder damage is straight up 16 damage.
Bam.
If they fail that dex save. 8 if they succeed. But still, that's a great amount of free damage to have. Thunderous Strike follows up at level 6. When you deal lightning damage to a large or smaller creature, you can push it up to 10 feet away from you.
Some nice battlefield control.
Battlefield control is kind of hard to come by in 5e, and it really makes a difference.
It does.
It makes more of a difference on the monster side than it does on the player side because it prevents big monsters from just getting hit by 5 people at one time. But it's still useful.
At 8th level, your Channel Divinity pays off again, and then it stacks with Divine Strike here, where, of course, when you hit with a weapon attack, it deals an extra d8 of thunder damage. 14th level is 2d8, but, of course, you can maximize it with your Divine Strike to just do an automatic 8 extra damage, which is a lot.
I'll take it.
Finally, at 17th level, you get Stormborn, where you gain a flying speed equal to your current walking speed whenever you are not underground or indoors.
Which is your Thor, and you can fly, but not underground or indoors.
Exactly.
For some reason.
It's fine. Shut up.
It's like 17th level. I'm like, if you really want to fly, I'm pretty sure you figured out another way to do it by 17th level.
By this point, yeah.
You're like, hey, wizard, cast fly on me.
Make it so.
Or I'll hit you with my hammer.
I will knock you off that cliff.
Do it.
10 feet away. So next up is another PHP classic, the Trickery domain.
I love that you get kind of the weird domains because clerics aren't always good. They aren't always super upright. It's nice to have a cleric of Loki. You know?
Oh, totally. He's my favorite Marvel character. Right, so at first level, you get Charm Person and Disguise Self. These are 2 classic trickster spells and are often used for mischief and mayhem to great impact. At third level, you get Mirror Image, a classic defensive one, and Pass Without Trace, which is interesting to me because I think it's a sleeper spell that people often overlook.
It is a sleeper spell, and in certain campaigns, it can be really helpful.
At 5th level, you get Blink and Dispel Magic, useful for survivability in both cases. Any good trickster need those up their sleeve. At 7th level, you get Dimension Door and Polymorph, which opens up a whole suite of possibilities for things you can screw with.
Those are both just always handy.
And then 9th level really gets you Dominate Person and Modify Memory. What is real? Is the top spinning or not? How many layers deep have we gone?
Modify Memory and Dominate Person are the 2 most insidious freaking spells You could do some fucked up shit with those.
Absolutely.
So be nice to your players and DMs, lines and veils, people.
Trickster is maybe one of those ones where you want to talk about lines and veils, depending on how well you know
player
your people.
agency.
Right.
Don't be dick to your party members, okay?
Right. So you get Blessing of the Trickster at first level, which is you can use your action to touch a willing creature other than yourself and give it advantage on dexterity stealth checks. The blessing lasts for an hour or until you use it again. So that's useful for helping somebody sneak with you. And then at second level, you get Invoke Duplicity, which is using your channel divinity to create an illusory duplicate of yourself. This is so cool. As an action, you create a perfect illusion of yourself that lasts for 1 minute or until you lose concentration, as if you were concentrating on a spell. The illusion appears in an unoccupied space that you can see within 30 feet of you, and as a bonus action on your turn, you can move it up to 30 feet to a space you can see, but it must remain within 120 feet of you. For the duration, you can cast spells as though you were in the illusion space, but you must use your own senses. Additionally, when you and your illusion are within 5 feet of a creature that can see the illusion, you have advantage on attack rolls against that creature given how distracting the illusion is to the target.
What a fun early level feature. It really makes up for the sneakiness feature not being that great.
It's super cool. I think it's really a flexible power that lends itself to a lot of creativity.
You could be very tricky with it. It's also a nice way to deliver touch attacks without having to get into melee yourself.
That's very true.
It's very nice for that.
Or granting flanking for yourself if you do that.
Right. I really enjoy this one. This one's great.
At sixth level, you get Cloak of Shadows, where you can use your channel divinity to vanish. Poof.
Classic.
As an action, you become invisible until the end of your next turn. You become visible if you attack or cast a spell. Basically, it's Smoke Bomb.
Yeah, it's a smoke bomb.
Ninja Vanish.
It's not that level of invisibility. I always take issue with things that make you invisible until the end of your next turn, because how helpful is that really?
Not as helpful.
It's really not. You're maybe going to avoid one attack. They can still try to attack you at disadvantage even.
Well, what it would do is let you get away from a fight without an opportunity attack.
This is true.
That's the
maybe.
guarantee.
Yeah,
you vanish and move away. You know, you may as well withdraw, but maybe there's, I don't know, Ninja Vanish.
Yeah, it's a smoke bomb. You get Surprise Divine Strike again, but this time it's poison damage at level 8.
I guess makes sense.
Makes sense. It's the most tricky thing of the damage types, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then at 17th level, you get Improved Duplicity, and you can make 4 duplicates of yourself instead of 1. As a bonus action on your turn, you can move any number of them up to 30 feet. It's to a maximum range of 120.
This is where it gets so crazy.
However, what I think would be cooler would be if your Invoke Duplicity ability scaled with level.
That would be better.
We got a different capstone power at 17th level, because there's a lot of things you could do with the Trickery domain. I don't see any illusion magic here, which is a little strange for Trickery, in my opinion.
True. Yeah.
Or maybe it would give you a better invisibility or a teleport. I don't know. I feel like this one could be slightly better, but that other one's just so much fun. It's just weird to me that it goes from 1 to now you can do 4.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a big jump.
How did they come by it? Or
you don't see jumps like that a lot in D&D. Usually it kind of goes in stages. But so it is.
So the next one we have is another PHP classic, and it's the last one that we're touching upon, which is the War Domain.
The War Domain. This one's fun.
Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, it's a classic, right? A Priest of War is often seen in all the different tropes.
Or War Priest is sometimes a class unto itself. So, first level, Divine Favor and Shield of Faith. Third level is Magic Weapon and Spiritual Weapon. Fifth level is Crusader's Mantle and Spirit Guardians. You don't see those ones a ton.
Nope.
Freedom of Movement, always good. Stone Skin, usually pretty good. Flame Strike and Hold Monster.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like there should be more large area of effect spells for a War Cleric. Like, I feel like a War Cleric would cast Fireball.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
That's like a spell a War Cleric would know. But let's get into it a little bit more.
So at first level, you get proficiency with martial and weapons and heavy armor. It seems to make sense, of course. This is your Battle Cleric. Pretty classic build. You also get to be a War Priest in that your god delivers bolts of inspiration to you while you're engaged in battle. When you use the attack action, you can make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. So you start off with 2 attacks. That's pretty
great. This clearly leans more into the melee side of things.
You can only use it a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you gain all expended uses during a long rest.
Still pretty handy, right? You're up there with a monk getting that extra attack pretty early. Your channel divinity is called Guided Strike. Starting at 2nd level, when you make an attack roll, you can use channel divinity to gain plus 10 bonus to the roll.
Oof.
You make this choice after you see the roll, but before the DM tells you whether it hits or misses. You do not see a plus 10 in 5e hardly at all. This
Very
this
rare.
screams Pathfinder to me, or
does.
3.5
It does.
Dungeons and Dragons.
It very
And
much
because
does.
of that, I fucking love it.
I know.
I'm like, it's not like advantage. That's only like plus 5 sometimes mathematically at best. How about plus 10?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck yeah, who doesn't want a plus 10 to something?
Totally.
It's strange though, you do not see like a random plus 10 bonus in hardly any other features in 5e.
Which is funny because it shows up again with, at 6th level, War God's Blessing. When a creature within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll, you can use your reaction to grant that creature a plus 10 bonus to the roll using your channel divinity.
It's so weird.
You make this attack after you see the roll, but before the DM says whether the attack hits or misses. I think this is like their acquiescence. They're like, you know what, we get it. You want to build your battle cleric that was invincible from the
here's
prior
your,
edition.
your melee diviner caster.
Here's your plus 10.
Right? It's strange. It's not a reroll. It's not.
Nope.
You can add, like there's favored by the gods. You can roll like 2d8 and add it,
Yes.
but you get to know if you fail or not beforehand. This one's just plus 10.
Right. And then, of course, at 8th level, you get Divine Strike, another D8, but this time it is the same type dealt by the weapon you're dealing, so it's just more of whatever you already have.
Not that great, honestly.
Scales, of course, to 2d8 at 14th level. And then finally, at 17th level, you get Avatar of Battle, wherein you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons.
I don't know.
Forge got it plus fire immunity?
Yeah.
So...
yeah. I don't know. It feels a little lackluster, this one, to me. I'd rather than playing a War Domain Cleric, I think I'd just pick up Forge Cleric, honestly, because you're better at all the things this
Or
is Cleric.
Tempest. But
The
Forge-
only thing you're missing out on is that extra attack. But you get other cool stuff to make up for it, I think. There's a couple other Cleric subclasses that we'll give an honorable mention. We're not going to go through them. They're from the Amonkhet expansion bit here. They're mostly just a mix-up of other Cleric features put into different orders and categories. The ones you will find there is Solidarity, Strength, Ambition, and Zeal. Now, Zeal in particular is a little bit ridiculous. So if you're looking for like kind of a weird, different Cleric build, and your DM's cool with it, check out Zeal from the Amonkhet stuff. Anyway, I think that covers pretty much all of the official Cleric subclasses that we're going to cover.
Agreed. And I think that does it for Cleric. It's one of the beefiest classes that there is.
Super versatile. Like, no one in your party's going to be mad if you have a Cleric. It's one of those classes where you'll sometimes see 2 Clerics in a party, and it's not a weird thing at all because they're so different.
I think that we can definitely, hopefully in this edition, finally do away with the stigma against Clerics because they really are just so flexible, and you can build them to be whatever you want and not have to be the healer in the party.
And the nice thing about a Cleric from a roleplay perspective is it gives you this ideological worldview, and that can be really helpful sometimes because you know how your character's going to act because their principles are usually pretty clear, or the principles of their religion, their deity are very clear. And for me, myself, as an atheist, I love playing religious characters because I'm like, yes, I know what this character would do, and I don't have to worry about all that other stuff. This is great. Like, I find it really fun. And it's a very cool way to get like a different perspective and a different worldview and to explore that through your character, because that kind of really affects everything your character does. Because in D&D, all that shit is real.
Yeah.
Belief is power in D&D.
Okay.
You got to believe to achieve, kids.
And you should stay tuned because you can better believe that we are closing in on our contests, and we're looking forward to announcing our winners very soon.
All right.
Until next time.